How you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
Excellent. How did the markets do today? Wall Street, S&P, all those guys.
You know, all the way around, a very strong day in the markets, and I think that there was, and we've talked about this over the last couple of weeks, but there just seems to be this across-the-board optimism, and, you know, we might get a day of bad news. Like yesterday we had a disappointing jobs number and the Federal Reserve report, and that kind of pushed that day down. But by the next day, the bulls are back, and everyone's ready to go buy stocks, and you know, off we were again today. And now, you know, heading into tomorrow, we do have the big jobs report, and so that's going to be what everyone's going to be watching when that comes out at 8:30 in the morning.
When you look at, you know, what are bargains, you know, what kind of things, if you go looking for that jewel, like I've got a great suit I picked up at the SPCA rummage store for $20, and people, every time I wear it, people say, wow, that's a great, you know, so what kind of deals do you see out there, or do they change on a daily basis?
Well, I don't know if they necessarily change on a daily basis, but they definitely change. And what I always try to do is find things that maybe there's a little bit of a unique story to, or somehow the market's not necessarily fully appreciating what the business can do. And, you know, an example, I bought Express Scripts for clients a few weeks ago, and a lot of the market was, I think, concerned about how the merger was going to be with Medco and how that was going to all play out. And my view was that there was a lot of synergies to be had here, and you know, obviously it's only been a few weeks, but, you know, I think that's a situation where you're going to see the market start to realize the true earnings power of this company. So that's one way to look for stuff. I think another thing is to look for companies that, you know, maybe they had a bad quarter, or maybe, you know, they had a little blip and the market's overreact. And so, you know, it's not necessarily that you find a bargain every day or you find a great company to go buy every day, but if you're watching it every day and you see an opportunity and you're prepared to act, then you can step in and make a move.
We were talking about the Marketplace Fairness Act as it came down to Wall Street, and it was an angle I hadn't thought about. It was actually brought up by Bob Goodlatte, that one of the reasons that they're not real keen on the Marketplace Fairness Act is that they see it as something that people could then start looking at the buying and selling of stocks, especially using the Internet. You do a lot of work, I'm sure, through RedWaveInvestments.com. So I don't know, is that something that the stock trading community has talked about, this Marketplace Fairness Act and taxing Internet transactions?
Well, I think that there's a couple different angles there, and one is definitely an issue that you hear about. It impacts the bigger companies that are more publicly traded stocks less than the small business, because, you know, if you go to Banana Republic or something and you buy yourself a pair of khakis, you're going to pay sales tax wherever you live in the U.S. because they have a store in every single state, right? But if you just go to, you know, some mom-and-pop business that maybe only sells $1 million a year of merchandise, they're the ones that are really going to get hit. So there's less emphasis, I think, on this on the companies that are publicly traded and that I deal with on a regular basis than there are on the small businesses. But you do bring up a very interesting point about whether it just gets us one step closer to all sorts of taxes on transactions that occur on the Internet. And I think that is something that has been discussed over the past couple of years in relation to all sorts of financial transactions. And there has been a talk about some financial transaction tax pretty much at least since the financial crisis, if not longer. The commodities regulator came out yesterday and said they want to propose a small tax on every futures trade that happens that's, you know, done by a quote-unquote speculator to raise money to fund their thing. And so I do think there is that concern that if there is, you know, it's almost like tax creep, right? Like it's just a little bit more that we're going to start taxing, and where does that eventually lead to? So I don't know if people are worried about it tomorrow, but I think that it is one of those things that brings more transactions under the, you know, framework of, hey, maybe we should be taxing this.
Mark Smith on the EntitlementsDestroyLives.com guest hotline from Red Wave Investments, RedWaveInvestments.com. Mark, thank you so much for your market wrap. We'll talk to you again tomorrow after the jobs report.
Thanks, Jim.